Hello and welcome to today's Hindu newspaper analysis of the Delhi edition from the profile section of the Delhi edition. Today is Sunday because no editorial published from here, but important articles, weekly articles published in Hindu newspapers regarding controversial issues in the world and across the world. Geneva Conventions and the, let's get started. Geneva Conventions and the Russia-Ukraine war. What is Geneva Conventions? Why is Geneva Conventions followed and adopted by the many countries at that time? Can the treaties protect those who have been affected by the conflict, especially civilians and the wounded? What is the story so far? कहानी अब तक की क्या है? Russia's armed invasion of Ukraine starting February 24 has set off a steady escalation in the hostilities on Ukrainian oil. And in many cases, civilian infrastructure and non-combatants have been impacted. As the Russian military countries continues to sweep through the country, marching on the capital Kyiv. Kyiv is the capital of the Ukraine. There is growing concern surrounding the issue of human rights violations. Russian President Vladimir Putin has denied any responsibility for harm to civilians. However, as the evidence of casualties in the civilian population continues to mount, the world will increasingly look to the Geneva Conventions, a set of principles outlining norms for the combatants' behavior during a war, for a standard to which the invading Russian forces can be held. Ultimately, if there is a compelling case for prosecuting combatants for war crimes against humanity, genocide, also known as Narsanghar, and the crime of aggression, evidence could be collected for an investigation, and a trial at the International Criminal Court of Justice. International Criminal Court of Justice, also known as ICC. What are the Geneva Conventions guidelines during the war time? War time के समय Geneva Conventions की guideline क्या है? First point, the Geneva Conventions are a set of 4 treaties. Geneva Convention क्या है? Geneva Conventions are a set of 4 treaties. 4 संधियों का एक सेट है, formalized in 1949, and the 3 additional protocols, which codify widely accepted ethical and legal international standard for humanitarian treatment of those impacted by war. The focus of the conventions is the treatment of non-combatants and prisoners of war, and not the use of the conventional or biological and chemical weapons, the use of which is governed respectively by the Hague Conventions and the Geneva Protocol. The first Geneva Convention protects wounded and sick soldiers on land during war. This convention extended to medical and religious personnel, medical units, and medical transport. While recognizing distinctive emblems of these organizations, the convention has 2 annexes, containing a draft agreement relating to hospital zones and model identity card for medical and religious personnel. The second Geneva Convention protects wounded, sick, and shipwrecked military personnel set off during wars. The convention also extended to hospital ships and medical transport by sea, with specific commentary on the treatment and protections for their personnel. The third Geneva Convention applies to prisoners of war, including a wide range of general protections such as human treatment, maintenance and equality across prisoners, conditions of captivity, questioning and evacuation of prisoners, transit camps, food, clothing, medicines, hygiene, right to religious, intellectual and physical activities of prisoners. The fourth Geneva Convention, which most imminently applied to the invasion of Ukraine by Russian military forces, protects civilians, including those in the occupied territory. The other Geneva Conventions were concerned mainly with okay, combatants rather than civilians. However, based on the experience of World War II, which demonstrated the horrific consequences of having no conventions for the protection of civilians in wartime. The fourth convention, comprising 159 articles, outlines the norms for the critical dimensions of conflict. Okay, along with the additional protocols of 1977, the fourth convention expounds upon the general protection of populations against certain consequences of war. The conduct of hostilities and the status and treatment of protected persons. Okay, distinguishing between the situation of foreigners on the territory of one of the parties to the conflict and that of civilians in occupied territory. Okay, occupied territory. This convention also spells out the obligations of the occupying power vis-à-vis the civilian populations and outline detailed provisions on humanitarian relief for populations in occupied territory. As the International Committee for the Red Cross, a key medical intermediary in such situations, explained this convention also contains a specific regime for the treatment of civilian internees, including 3 annexes on hospital and safety zones and model regulations on humanitarian relief. Which countries are signatories? The Geneva Conventions have been ratified by 196 countries, states, also known as country, including all UN members. Okay, 3 protocols have been ratified by 174 and 169 and 79 states respectively. In 2019, perhaps anticipating the possibility of its invading Ukraine in the near future, Russia withdrew its declaration under Article 19 of Protocol First, which states that the high contracting parties may at the time of signing, ratifying or acceding to the protocol or at any other subsequent time declare that they recognize, ipso facto and without a special agreement, in relation to any other high contracting party accepting the same obligation, the competence of the International Fact-Finding Commission to insuring into allegations by such other party, as authorized by the article, by withdrawing this declaration, Russia has preemptively left itself with the option to refuse access by any international fact-finding missions to Russian entities, individual or resources that might potentially, in Moscow's conning, find Russia responsible for violations of the Geneva Conventions standard. Further, the 4 conventions and first 2 protocols of Geneva Conventions were ratified by the Soviet Union, not Russia. Hence, there is a risk of the Russian government of the day, disavowing any responsibility under the convention into what would be the step for potential prosecution under the convention. Under Article 8 of the Rome Statute of the International Court of Justice, International Criminal Court. It is the International Criminal Court that has jurisdiction in respect of war crimes. In particular, when committed as part of a plan or policy or as part of large-scale commission of such crimes under the statute, war crimes refers to grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions, including willful killing, torture or inhuman treatment, including biological experiments, willfully causing great suffering or serious injury to body or health, extensive destruction and appropriation of property not justified by military necessity and carried out unlawfully and wantonly, compelling a prisoner of war or other protected persons to serve in the forces of hostile powers willfully. Willfully. Depriving a prisoner of war or other protected persons of the rights of fair and regular trials, unlawful deportation or transfer or unlawful confinement, taking of hostage. What evidence of war crime has been accumulated so far? US Vice President Kamala Harris, who is ladies, called for an investigation into allegations of Russian committing war crimes in Ukraine, citing as example the bombing of a maternity hospital in the southern city of Mariupol. Similarly, Mariupol is a city in Ukraine already noted from here. Similarly, there has been, photographic and video evidence of lethal firing on civilians trying to escape across a damaged airpin near Kyiv, and hours of cell phone videos of, bombed out schools, houses and apartment building across Ukraine. However, analysts have argued that much of such evidence does not answer the central question of any war crime prosecution. Who ordered which crime? The evidence that is required to answer this question, if it is recoverable, will come from the mobile phone and other communications equipment of Russian soldiers, which would typically include information or orders received from commanding officers, and video or audio evidence of attacks executed and the aftermath. To examine any such evidence emerging, on February 28 of the ICC opened a war crime investigation under its prosecutor Karim Khan. To what extent have Geneva Conventions been upheld worldwide in recent years? On the 17th anniversary of the Convention's adoption, Amnesty International, a human rights advocacy group, noted in 2019 that there has been a blatant disregard for civilian protections and international humanitarian law in armed conflicts, where 4 of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council are parties: Russia, US, UK and France. Especially, Amnesty cited the US-led coalition bombing of Raqqa in Syria. Raqqa is a city in Syria which left more than 1,600 civilians dead. Destruction of civilian infrastructure and lives in Aleppo and Idlib by Russian forces, leading to mass, Aleppo and Idlib cities in Russia, leading to mass displacement of millions, and the war in Yemen, where the Saudi Arabia and the UAE-led coalition, backed by the West, killed and injured thousands of civilians, fueling a full-blown humanitarian crisis. These cases underscores the grim fact that Geneva Conventions, even when backed by ruling of the ICC, cannot be enforced by third parties to any conflict. However, they have in the past proved effective at raising global awarenesses of human rights violations across conflict zones, and in some cases led to sanctions or trade embargoes against the belligerents. An unpredictable populist money battle. Why? The Russian president has tightened control domestically but faces a tough test in Ukraine due to the best stiff curves. What is the story so far? Unpredictability was one of the cornerstone of Russian President Vladimir Putin's foreign policy. Not many foresaw the Russian military intervention in Georgia in 2008, a few months after Georgia was offered membership in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, also known as NATO. Russia's annexation of Crimea, the Ukrainian peninsula that hosts Russia's Black Sea Fleet in 2014, immediately after the elected government of President Viktor Yanukovych was toppled by protests, surprised many. A year later, as the whole world was debating whether the embattled regime of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad was on the brink of a collapse, Mr. Putin sent Russian jets and special forces to the best Asian country, that hosts the Russian naval base in the Mediterranean. समझ गए? All these operations are largely seen as a successful display of the new Russian power. Russia revved up its military operations in Georgia in 12 days. It annexed Crimea without any major military operation. It annexed Crimea in 2014 without any major military operation. And in Syria, the Russian interventions turned around the civil war. And in Syria, the Russian interventions turned around the civil war. Meticulous planning. What is meticulous planning from here? cut to the present. Okay, cut to the present. Russia had started mobilizing tens of thousands of troops along its western borders with Ukraine late last year. Western intelligence agencies repeatedly warned that Russia was planning to attack Ukraine. The unpredictability factor was totally missing. The Kremlin dismissed those warnings. But in the early morning of February 24, Mr. Putin ordered a special military operation to demilitarize denazi Ukraine. Immediately thereafter, the Russian invasion of Ukraine began from three sides. From the Belarus border in the north. Okay, you know, Belarus situated north from Ukraine. Okay, from Russian borders, which is far east from Ukraine, and Moscow-backed self-declared Donetsk, Luhansk Republic in the east, okay, and Crimea in the south. You know, this is the location from here. As the attack entered the third week, Russian troops have captured territories on the three sides. But Ukrainian cities continue to stay defiant. The attack has also triggered a united response from the West, which has imposed tough sanctions on Russia. Germany, Europe's largest economy, has halted the Nord Stream 2 pipelines, and US has banned imports of Russian oil and gas, besides other sanctions. Germany has also announced a sharp rise in its defense budget, okay, signaling a decisive shift in Europe's security calculus. As the war drags on and West keeping tightening sanctions on Russia, it emerges, okay, that Ukraine war is totally different from Russia's previous military actions. From spy to president. Okay. Born in 1952 in Stalin Russia. Stalin, जब मिस्टर स्टालिन का रसिया था. मिस्टर पुतिन graduated in 1925 from Leningrad State University. Leningrad का आजकल Leningrad State University. Now St. Petersburg State University. He served 15 years as a foreign intelligence officer for the Committee for State Security, of which 6 years were in Dresden, Eastern Germany. In 1990, a year before the disintegration of the Soviet Union, Mr. Putin retired with the rank of lieutenant, colonel. In the new Russia, he started his political career in St. Petersburg, the former capital of the Tsar. Tsar is a historical city in Russia. Dar also known as Tsar. Tsar is a historical city in Russia. In 1994, he became the first deputy mayor of the city. 2 years later, Mr. Putin moved to Moscow, where he joined the Kremlin as an administrator. He captured the world attention in 1998 when President Boris Yeltsin appointed him as a director of the Federal Security Service. The successor of the Committee for State Security KGB, he never had to turn back. Russia was in bad shape at that time. Its economy was in shambles. It was not in a position to challenge NATO at that time in 1952, 1975 something, 1980 something, which had revived talks of expanding to Eastern Europe. In Chechnya is a city. In Chechnya, a separatist war was raging. Mr. Yeltsin, the vodka-drinking Alof leader who was struggling to deal with the many challenges his big country was facing, started looking at Mr. Putin. The young spy master, as his successor, in 1999, he appointed Mr. Putin as the Prime Minister. When Mr. Yeltsin stepped down, Mr. Putin became acting president in 2000. He began his first term after the presidential elections. Great power rivalry. great power rivalry. Why? During the early years of Mr. Putin presidency, Russia's ties with the West were relatively cordial. Russia had been taken into the G7 industrialized economy in 1997. Mr. Putin supported the US war on terror after the September 11 terror attacks. In 2001, President George B. Bush said Mr. Putin was very straightforward and trustworthy. But the larger factors of great power rivalry would soon take over the post-Soviet tendencies of engagement. When the US invaded Iraq in 2003, Russia took a strong position against it. A year after the Iraq invasion, NATO expanded further to the east, this time taking the three Baltic countries, Latvia, Lithuania and Estonia, all sharing borders with Russia. समझ गए? Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia are sharing borders with Russia and four other Eastern Europe, into its fold. Mr. Putin later remarks would show how he looked at the US-led global order, having silently accepted NATO's expansion in the past. A more confident and materialistic Russia appeared to have drawn a red line on Georgia and Ukraine, both Black Sea basin countries that share borders with Russia. In 2010, Mr. Putin sent troops to Georgia, practically ending its NATO dream. In 2014, besides annexing Russia, he offered military and financial aid to separatists in Russian-speaking territories of Ukraine, Eastern Ukraine. The conflict that began in 2014 has now snowballed into a full-scale war between Russia and Ukraine. Domestically, Mr. Putin has tightened his control on the Russian state over the years. He is one of the longest-serving government leaders in Europe. Despite his crackdown on dissent and militarism, Mr. Putin remains a highly popular leader in Russia. In February, before the war started, Mr. Putin had a 71% approval rating among the Russian public, at the highest since May 2018. He was mastered a complex model with regular elections and allowed him to retain total dominance on Russian politics, something which British historian Perry Anderson calls a managed democracy. At the same time, he constantly pushed to expand Russian influence abroad, challenging the West. This model of dominance at home and counterbalance abroad faces a tough test in Ukraine. It's too early to say which direction the military conflict would go. But one thing is clear: the West is determined to make sure that the economic costs of the attack are unprecedented and long-term for Russia. Before Mr. Putin, there are a bar and many more battles. So these are two sufficient articles. RBI shifts curbs on HDFC Bank. Is not most important. Stand-up comic to Punjab CM. How did the Chief Minister designate lead Aam Aadmi Party to power? Men's share of controversies. In his campaign, Bhagwant Mann took up almost all serious political and social issues in the state, from unemployment to the drug problem and mafia groups, and offered a change to the masses. समझ गए? एक बार देख लेते हैं जो कि पंजाब चीफ मिनिस्टर के कैंडिडेट हैं, क्या सिचुएशन है. Seen invariably donning a yellow turban and shouting slogans such as "Inqilab Zindabad," "Long Live Revolution." Inqilab Zindabad मतलब long live revolution at public rallies. Bhagwant Mann, the 48-year-old farmer comedian, 48-year-old farmer comedian has just done what was deemed impossible until a few years ago. He led the Aam Aadmi Party to power in Punjab, defeating three mainstream parties, the ruling Congress, Shiromani Akali Dal, and the Bharatiya Janata Party. The Aam Aadmi Party founded in soon recently in 2012 by Arvind Kejriwal, who came to power in Delhi in 2015, swept the Punjab elections with 92 seats out of 117. Mr. Bhagwan Singh Maan won from Dhuri constituency by a margin of over 58,000 votes. He will sworn in on March 16 at a ceremony in Katgar Kalan, the ancestral village of freedom fighter Bhagat Singh. समझ गए? ध्यान कर लेना, ये कौन है? ये खटकार कलान, ये विलेज है भगत सिंह का. The new government of Punjab will be run from villages and mohallas instead of palaces and farmhouses. Mr. Maan said, people from houses across Punjab will come to swearing in ceremony, शपथ ग्रहण समारोह जिसको कहते हैं. They will also pay tribute to Bhagat Singh. They will have a good cabinet. Historic decisions that were never made before. Will be made. So you will have to bet, he said after meeting the governor. Public favorites. Ahead of 2022 assembly polls, Mr. Maan, the Aam Aadmi Party Punjab president and its most recognizable face, was named as its chief ministerial candidate. The party said his selection was based on a public opinion poll conducted through a telephone before Mr. Maan was formally announced as the party's chief ministerial face. Mr. Kejriwal had said, he was very dear to me. He is like a younger brother. Mr. Maan was quick to seize the momentum. He took hold of the party's electoral campaign, galvanized its cadre, leading to what they called a victory of the common people. He is now in the top league of political leaders in the state. Known for his satires on political leaders. Mr. Maan, however, ran a campaign taking up almost all serious political and social issues in the state, from unemployment to the drug problem and mafia groups. He offered change to the masses, which grew increasingly impatient with the establishment political classes, and the voters seem to have brought it. Balbir Singh, a senior Aam Aadmi Party member and MLA, such people call Mr. Maan a comedian, but in his satire, the tragedy of Punjab would be clearly seen. Maan's share controversy. Mr. Maan had his share of controversy as well. In 2016, as an MP, he shot a video in the Parliament complex and said it on social media, triggering a controversy. Later, he apologized. Mr. Maan has often come under attack from his opponents, who allege he is an alcoholic. He was accused of coming to public events drunk. Suspended Aam Aadmi Party MP Harihander Khalsa even complained to the Lok Sabha Speaker Sumitra Mahajan about Mr. Maan coming under the influence of alcohol to Parliament. In 2019, amid mounting criticism, Mr. Maan took a vow at an Aam Aadmi Party event to never touch alcohol again. Mr. Maan says he has joined politics only to bring back the prosperity and glory of Punjab. He offered an era of the common people. The voters backed his narrative. Now the challenges before him is to walk the talk. आइए चलते हैं, बातें करते हैं. समझ गए? So this is most important article from here. मैगजीन पोर्शन एक बार हम देख लेते हैं. इसका मैगजीन पोर्शन भी आज आया है, काफी अच्छा इंपॉर्टेंट है. द फ्लाइट ऑफ द ब्रूम्स. मैगजीन पोर्शन इसने दिया नहीं यार। लाइन पर हो, थोड़ा सा एक मैं पिक्चर लेता हूं। मैगजीन इसमें आया नहीं, मैगजीन को मैं अलग से करता हूं। वीकली मैगजीन है। Okay. A man of the people who redefined the idea of India. This is most important article from here. You know already from here. Okay. This truly researched biography on the movement that was Jayaprakash Narayan offer a holistic view of the JP life and politics. This extraordinary Mr. JP Jayaprakash Narayan was a movement by himself. खुद में एक आंदोलन थे। In hindsight, he was the most controversial politician. Okay, independent India has ever produced. The storms that threw up, especially in the turbulent in 1970s, reached every nook and cranny of the country and shocked the nation's conscience and imagination. Quite interestingly, all the smoke and fire his life had triggered were four causes, okay, that would redefine the idea of India. भारत का विचार को redefine किया. That takes us to most important question: who is the man? After JP death in 1976, several scholars and historians have attempted to answer the question that, and have not been able to offer a comprehensive answer for the mere fact JP multifaceted life, okay, defied existing paradigms of how political humans should be. A few books try to offer a glimpse into JP's, okay, enigmatic but transparent life, including In the Name of the Democracy, JP Movement and the Emergency by Bipin Chandra. But there has been a long felt need for a comprehensive work on JP and the Dream of the Revolution by Bismal Prasad and Sujata Prasad fills the void. The emergency years, emergency साल में JP जयप्रकाश नारायण ने significant role play किया था. Historian and diplomat Bismal Prasad was a professor of South Asian studies at Geneva, Delhi. You know already. A close associate and confidant of JP, Bismal Prasad tracked JP life and career, especially the years that preceded his arrest and imprisonment during the emergency. जेल भी उनको हुई थी जयप्रकाश नारायण को इमरजेंसी के टाइम में. He passed away in 2015 after attempting this autobiography. But Bismal Prasad's daughter Sujata was able to finish the mission, and the result in this beautiful, truly researched volume on the movement that was Jayaprakash Narayan. Ultimate reveal, the dream of revolution begins with a very candid vision. Statement: Jayaprakash Narayan need to be rescued from the condensations of the posterity and a curious historical amnesia. Writes Sujata Prasad in her charming introduction. As one finishes the book, it is evident that this small, neatly edited volume does justice to the statement. In terse and tempered prose, Bismal and Sujata Prasad profile a man who, at one juncture in history, was as popular as Mahatma Gandhi. JP was a revolutionary. JP was a revolutionary. Through his revolution, did not take off. Okay, as intended, it did collapse, and the movement broke and branched out into many channels. That said, JP was not a failure either. He still remains one of the most important, corrective forces in Indian politics, as witnessed in recent history. The slogans JP raised against nepotism, elitism, exclusionary politics, authoritarianism, and those in favor of people's democracy, socialism, participatory rule, social audit of politics continue to reverberate Indian polity in though their color and character have changed in unrecognizable ways. Simply but take any politician today in any party, he will have a slice of JP in him. JP was a rebel in right sense of the word. He questioned authority fearlessly and clashed with conventions. He kept looking for new thoughts and norms which made question the status quo vociferously. This trait made him an enemy to almost every political party in India, including the rare distinction of being a political leader. Both congressmen and communists, lauded in 1960s and 1970s, champion of liberty. Like Mahatma Gandhi, he cherished the dream of the better India where everyone is equal. But unlike Gandhi, JP went to extra mile to embrace socialism. समझ गए? The dream of revolution, with passionate detailing, narrates the story of how JP was molded by the ideas of Marxism in particular and socialism in general. European Enlightenment, European Prabodhanvad, European Enlightenment, Gandhi's idea of non-violence and more. I was trying to widen the origins of democracy, JP wrote in his prison diary. But during the emergency, he witnessed how the idea of democracy and freedom of speech could be compromised in the hands of the authoritarianism, and he is still last breath. Remained a champion of liberty and people's rule. He was a man of the people. One of the most striking features of the book is its beautiful, lyrical prose. Rarely does one comes across such clarity, brevity and charm in non-fiction writing these days. This is a must read for everyone who is interested in the idea of India, which is incomplete without the story of Lok Nayak Jai Prakash Narayan. The reviewer is the founder and publisher of India and Art Review. This book is most important for historian and expert persons. The Dream of Revolution, a biography of Jai Prakash Narayan, written by Bismal Prasad and his daughter Suraja Prasad, Penguin. His price is $7.99. So these are and anything else? Most important article. So